This is the American Lair Show. Thanks for coming. If you're a subscriber, if you're listening sometimes or just listening one time, I appreciate it. Thank you. My name is Dave Money, and this show is all about the appreciation of classic clothes and all things Americana. If you dress real prep, you might like this. Ralph Lauren collectors, you might like this. You love the great outdoors, you might like this. It's like this, it's like this. Thanks for coming to the show. My name is Dave Money, and this is American Lairs. I have an obsession with classic clothes and all things Americana, and I want to share that obsession with you through this show. I love taking clothes to the tailor. I love the outdoors. I love talking about Brooks Brothers and Ralph Lauren, Lands' End. If you share this obsession, subscribe, stick around. Let's build community. Let's trade stories. People ask me how it all started, and that's a tricky question. I'm an artist. I've always cared about how things look. When mom would leave, sometimes I'd rearrange the furniture, call myself redecorating. If you want to know more specifically about fashion, I'd say around that same time, I was looking through her JCPenney catalogs. I would flip to the men's section and look at the pants. They always had the slacks laid out, in the color assortments. I would stick my finger on the pictures I like and just touch it. I felt like if I touched it, I could have it. I'd also circle things. I'd write down the item number, the page number, and the price. I think I even did the multiplication to figure out what the totals would be. I love doing this sort of stuff. I was already obsessive. I would look at the polo jerseys, the short sleeve knits, and I would stare at every color. I felt like if I had these colors, it would change my life somehow. I never got everything I circled, but I would get some of the stuff. I remember the boxes coming in. We would slice the tape, tear the box open and remove our items from the box and run to a section of the sofa to start looking, trying the stuff on. We would slide the pants on and mom would grab the belt loops to make sure it all fit. I felt good. When we got new clothes, often the setup was 2 pairs of pants and 4 or 5 shirts. I guess that's because the pants were more expensive and you could wear them more often. Where shirts, you'd want to have a different shirt for each day of the week. I think the exception was maybe spring and summer, where you might get 5 pairs of shorts, a bunch of colorful designs or whatever you liked. This was cool for me. I was always happy with the stuff I got. By 5th, 6th grade, I wanted to be like Snoop. He had some hit singles out and he wore the flannel shirts. One Christmas, I got like 4 flannel shirts. I would iron the hell out of them. It was so bad you could smell the wool burning. Well, a few of the shirts were wool and the others were synthetic material. I still remember the ones that were synthetic had nylon lining on the underside of the cuff. See, I was paying attention. I also had green jeans. I would iron the crease right down the middle. There was a girl in my 5th grade class who had an orange pair of jeans. I think the R&B stars at the time had made those popular. I asked her where she got those pants, and she said, Pensacola Mart. I never made it to the Mart, and I never got those orange jeans. But I do remember a pair of Payless sneakers I got. This was in preparation for a week-long camp at Cheney University. Now, again, I think I was still elementary age, and I was just buying the stuff I liked based on what mom laid out for me to choose from. So we're at Payless, and she said, hey, get anything you want, right? So I got a pair of sneakers, gray, high top, with a clear sole. Well, a portion of the sole was clear. Reminded me of glue sticks. And glue sticks are in my head because we always did projects around the house. So once camp started, I remember sitting on the bleachers in the gym and a few guys started cracking jokes. They were laughing at my sneakers. Apparently, the sneaks I had were a fake pair of Jordans. I was totally shocked. I didn't feel like I was doing anything fake. I was just being me. I was wearing a pair of shoes I liked, but these were fake Jordans. And for the first time in my life, I understood that there was a hierarchy. You know, some brands were apparently better than others. Now, I didn't necessarily believe this, but I understood that that sort of thinking existed. Up until that point, I would mix my Payless sneaks with my Nikes, but it was never a big deal. I remember having Cortez Nikes, Pumas, Asics. It was just what I liked, no big deal. I didn't get my first pair of so-called exclusive sneakers until I reached 6th grade. I had a pair of Deion Sanders. Our shoe budget was usually $50 to $55. The only way to get more was if one of us didn't spend all of our money. The other kid could add the difference to his $55. So by 6th grade, I managed to pull off $85 to get a pair of Deion Sanders. And I just loved them. You know, naturally, the styling was great. They were white, red, and black. And they had gold mesh right on the side. When I got to school, first day of 6th grade, I was sitting on the steps. And a childhood friend, a guy I'd known from all through elementary, he was always fresh. He came up and he noticed I had on the Deons. I think he was wearing a pair of Huaraches. But he gave me props for the Deons, and I knew I had done something good. A bunch of other kids gave me props too. So this was my first pair of exclusive sneaks. The attention felt great, but I wasn't spoiled. Luckily, I liked Reebok Classics a lot, and those only cost $50 to $55. So once the Deons wore out, I was cool with more Reeboks. In middle school, I was in an all-boys class for 7th and 8th grade. The guys in the class were so brand conscious. I remember guys grabbing each other by the collar. They would pull the collar back to read your label, and these dudes could tell a fake label from the real label. They would discriminate against various brands. If you had Bugle Boy, they might leave you alone for a little bit. But everybody was into Hilfiger, Ralph Lauren, Nike. These were big deals. I think a lot of these guys had older brothers who kind of taught them that these brands were important. Structure was another big one. I remember this one kid had a Structure sweater. He was from the class across the hall from us, another all-boys class. And he was a cool guy. Everybody liked him. And just real arrogant that day. He said, boy, this is Structure. And I didn't know anything about Structure, but when you're speaking with that sort of authority, I said, well, Structure must be everything. And so when I made it out to the mall, I stopped in the Structure store to take a look. And Structure shirts were going for like $60. I was like, wow, I had never seen anything like it, you know. This was the sort of thing I wanted to ask for, but I already knew the answer. Like a $60 shirt, mom wasn't having that. Around this time, I remember hearing about my aunt, Brenda. She was the most cultured person I knew. She lived in San Diego, and my older cousin had gone out there to live with her. So Aunt Brenda would come to town, and she would show us pictures of San Diego. It was the most beautiful place I had ever seen. I wanted to go. You know, it'd be a while before I actually made it out there, but once she moved back out east to Rhode Island, she asked for us to come visit her. So we made it out there. And Aunt Brenda was so cool. Whenever we saw her, she had gifts for us. So one summer, my grandmom, she had a Buick Riviera. She packed me and my brother, sister, and 3 cousins into the Buick, and we rode up to Rhode Island, Providence. It was one of the best trips ever. I remember it was summer, but it was pretty cool up there, at least some of the time. My Aunt Brenda drove a 240 Volvo, and her house was small, but it was really comfortable. We sat down for dinner, and this was my first time eating lamb. You know, her neighbors were nice, and she took us on a tour of I guess, her city and the surrounding cities. And I remember her calling us looky-loos. That was a funny term for me. I didn't know what it meant, but she showed us mansions where, historic things had happened, and we had a great time. I remember some people flying kites, flying large kites. The wind was so strong. We had fun. We went and checked out Boston and some other places, like I mentioned. We also went to a beach, and this was the most beautiful beach I had been to. And this is going to sound fake, but I remember a bunch of us standing in the water. It was really rocky, and the water came up to about our calves. And there were stingrays all around us. No one was afraid. It was just like the most majestic moment I had ever experienced. Stingrays all around us, and we're reaching through the water to pick up starfish. I had a styrofoam cup. I remember sticking a starfish in the cup, and I probably stuck some seashells in my pocket. When it was time to go, my cousin and I were like running up to the Buick with starfish stuffed in a cup. We smelled like seaweed. I think we had seaweed in our pockets. By the time we reached the car, my aunt and my grandma were like, "No." That killed us. We had to turn around, run the starfish all the way back to the water, and set them free. But we were allowed to keep the shells. And I held on to the shells for a while and, eventually lost track of them. So since that trip, I've always romanticized the Northeast. I remember the movie With Honors, where I think Brendan Fraser is working on a paper, and he loses it to a homeless man who's like living in a boiler room. They're on the university campus and walking around, wearing pea coats or trench coats or something like that. I just think of like With Honors, and I always imagine that if I spent time up there, life would be like that. And it'd probably be nothing like that. It'd be regular, but the imagination is great. So many of us, me, you, we all pair outfits with ideas and places we've been, and we think about places we want to go. That first trip up north was in 6th grade, and I didn't make it back until maybe 7th or 8th grade. And this time, the conditions were a little different. My sister, who's like 7 years older, had a boyfriend. They had a car, so we took a trip up. We felt like grown-ups. Once we got there, we stayed with my aunt, but we ventured off. I remember being in the town with a boardwalk and a bunch of shops, and I wandered into one of the shops, and I think they had like Helly Hansen jackets, like the 3/4 length sailing jacket with the nylon shell and the really exaggerated collars, the color block design. I had seen these jackets before. The guys around the way wore them, because Helly Hansen, Hilfiger, Nautica, all that stuff was popular. But this was my first time seeing it in its intended environment. And it moved me. I couldn't stop thinking about it. I couldn't stop thinking about how I was on a boardwalk and they were actually selling sailing jackets. So, up until this point, I was building some brand awareness, and maybe I had a few name brand items in the closet, but I didn't really care. I didn't have visions of killing the game. But this was the pivotal moment, this trip right here. In 8th grade, I remember going to a high school basketball game, and it seemed like everybody had on those jackets. These jackets were all over, and the color blocking just did something to me. That was the moment where I decided, like, yo, I want a lot of statement pieces in my closet. I want to kill them like the older guys did. And the crazy thing is, when you first experience something, it feels like everyone is doing it. It feels like everyone is doing it well. If I could see that same gymnasium now, maybe a very small percentage of the people were well dressed. Maybe even fewer had those jackets. But when it first hits you, it's so overwhelming. And I'm still moving off of that today. It's like 20 something years later, and I'm still trying to feel the way I felt when I first went to that high school basketball game. That explains my obsession with clothes, but if we want to explore the outdoor component, we got to rewind it to elementary school again. There was a guy named Mr. Jeffrey, and he started a group called Boys, and that stood for Brothers of Youth Society. And his goal was to take the young men of the neighborhood and show us a better way. They organized basketball tournaments, and we played in the tournaments. We never won. We were scrubs. But I remember us practicing at the Campbell Soup headquarters because it was located in our city. It was so cold, wind whipping up around the knuckles. You jam a finger or you bump something, and it really hurts, because it's cold outside. So again, we never won any games, but we had some other activities planned. We had a camp trip planned, but we needed to raise money. And now that I think about it, camping is pretty cheap. It's like $7 a night, depending on where you go. So I don't know why we needed to raise so much money. Maybe it was for the crab party. I think I remember us eating crabs one time. I can still see newspaper laid out. A bunch of kids having fun, drinking quarter juices. But anyway, to raise money for our trip, we collected cans. I remember collecting so many cans, it took 2 trips with the flatbed truck to get them to the junkyard. My yard was part paved, part dirt. And the entire paved portion was full of cans. I mean, like 1-2 feet off the ground. Mad cans. So I took the cans in, and I probably got $80 to $90 for all those cans. And like a good Boys member, I turned the money into Mr. Jeffrey. And you can imagine what happened. Mr. Jeffrey skipped town. He took all of our money. We never heard from him again. I hope he's well. But yeah, he had us all excited about the camp trip that never happened. We spent more time at a nursing home talking to old folks. Never made it outdoors though. And that was devastating to me because I had a magazine or a catalog with fishing lures, bows and arrows, tackle boxes. And just like with the JCPenney catalog, I would sleep with that catalog near me. I would circle the things I wanted to buy. I mean, they had Flintstones so you could start fires. They had lighters, lanterns, everything. And I just wanted to go somewhere where I could use this stuff. So I was close, or maybe I wasn't even close. The next time I even got close to being outdoors was with Mr. Wayne. He ran an actual Boy Scout troop, Boy Scouts of America. But the crazy thing is his stepsons were on the front porch hustling while he was inside, setting up Boy Scout stuff. It blows my mind. His stepson was a good friend of mine, and he told me what Wayne was doing, and I came over. And I remember us standing in his dining room. They had a table with a bunch of junk on it, and then he also had a form, and he was showing me what I needed to do to get signed up. So I took the form to Mom, and I guess it involved some kind of startup fee or dues or registration. And I guess we couldn't afford it at the time. So I was never able to join Boy Scout. I just wanted to get close to the earth. I wanted to experience the outdoors and do some of the stuff Primitive Man did, fend for myself. And I couldn't do it with boys or Boy Scouts. But luckily I had some uncles who loved fishing, so we were able to do that together. We'd go out, get catfish and sunnies. I even had my own tackle box. We had a lot of fun, and I wish I could have gotten out more, but the beauty of adulthood is we call our own shots. We don't have to wait for anyone to schedule our lives. We get to be free, wear the clothes we like, and seek our own adventures. This episode, I shared with you a few of the experiences that helped me become what I am now. But there's way too much for one episode. So I invite you to come back and explore the many layers of America with me, Dave Money. Once again, thank you for allowing me to share my obsession with you. It's been great. I can be reached at dave@americanlayers.com. Be sure to hit me up. Catch you next episode.